Hi, this is Dr. Jessica Dunn, and we're going to begin the discussion of financial ratios today. Financial ratios are an important tool because they allow you to gain insight over within a company. It can allow you to compare one single company over time or even one company versus its competitors. Ratios are important and they are used by lenders. First up, lenders use these ratios to analyze a company's creditworthiness. And so, because it's important to lenders, it's going to be important to management and shareholders because they both want to see this relationship happen because debt is the cheapest source of financing. Stockholders use financial ratios to estimate future cash flows and risk, and managers use them to identify areas of strength and weakness. It allows you deeper insight into how your company performance compares to your competitors. Ratio analysis involves calculating and interpreting financial ratios and allows you to monitor a firm's performance. So, why do we even look at credit ratios? One reason why is because we want to know if companies are creditworthy. Only a small portion of overall business analysis, but we need to look at the industry characteristics, agency issues, and strategy of the company as well. Um, we're going to look at several different types of financial ratios. We're going to look at liquidity ratios to see how easily a company can repay its debt. Profitability ratios, which look at how good a company is at making money, and leverage ratios or debt ratios to see how much debt the company is using and how much capacity they have for debt. So there's different ways that you can use financial ratios. You can do a cross-sectional analysis. This allows comparison of different firms' financial ratios at the same point in time. So you would compare a firm's financial ratios to those of other firms. So that way you could get an understanding of how your company is performing compared to its closest competitors. Now, cross-sectional analysis is looking at the same point in time and comparing yourself to other companies. Benchmarking is a type of cross-sectional analysis. So benchmarking is cross-sectional analysis, it's just a specific type. Benchmarking is where you use cross-sectional analysis to compare your company to its closest competitors. So you're looking at how well your company is doing relative to its target or its closest competitor. Um, but it's also popular to compare to industry average. So here is an example of cross-sectional analysis and benchmarking more specifically. So here if we were to look at Home Depot versus Lowe's. Home Depot versus Lowe's, that is cross-sectional analysis, but more importantly, it is benchmarking. So we see that when we make this comparison that Home Depot and Lowe's both have the same current ratio, which is current assets divided by current liabilities. When we look at its quick ratio, the quick ratio is significantly less than 1, so that could be troublesome if you didn't know about the industry. So Home Depot and Lowe's, remember that quick ratio is current assets minus inventory divided by current liabilities because inventory is the least liquid of our current assets. And so generally the rule is that you want a 1 or greater. This is less than 1. But when you think about the industry that they're in and the type of business that Home Depot and Lowe's runs, they're large warehouse stores filled with products that don't lose value. You know, if you were looking at Dell and HP there, for example, directly above that in the computer industry, their current ratio and their quick ratio is pretty close because they are a business that handles product that is continually declining in value. So they don't want a lot of inventory on hand. But Lowe's and Home Depot, the price of a 2x4 today is going to be about the price of a 2x4 next year. So them warehousing material is not as big of a concern. Time series analysis is a different type of comparison. Time series analysis is where you evaluate a single firm over time. So you're looking at how well your company has done over time. It allows you to compare current to past performance and to assess your firm's progress. This can allow you to see developing trends, and it's the most informative type of analysis would be the combination of cross-sectional and time series analysis. And so here's a pictorial example of this. Here we see that Bartlett Company here in isolation, the orange line, that is time series analysis. Ignore the blue line. The orange line there is time series analysis. You're looking to see how well your company has done over time. We see that their average collection period has increased. Now, it's much more informative when we do a combined analysis, where we combine cross-sectional and time series analysis. So here we look at how well Bartlett Company is doing and how well the industry is doing over time. It allows us to draw deeper conclusions. So we see that Bartlett Company's average collection period has increased while the industry has slightly decreased and remained stable. So that brings up a lot of questions. It doesn't tell us that there's anything specifically wrong, but it does bring up a lot of questions. It leads us to wonder why their average collection period is increasing. Could they have perhaps increased the amount of time that they've allowed their creditors to pay? So have they increased their average payment period or accounts receivable period from 30 days to 45? They now give their customers 45 days to pay instead of 30. That would see an upward line. Maybe the billing department isn't doing a good job at sending out bills and reminding customers that they owe money and collecting those payments. Maybe the sales team isn't doing a very good job. Maybe they're extending credit to people who aren't credit worthy. Or maybe there's a lot of bad notes that haven't been written off. Maybe if we look deep into these bills that haven't been collected yet, these invoices that are owed, maybe we will see that there are some that are 100 days past due and just need to be written off. We don't know. But it does lead us to a lot of different questions that can be asked. So financial ratios, there are some cautions that we need to be concerned of when looking at financial ratios. First up, ratios only indicate the possibility of a problem. So it doesn't mean that there is a problem. It means there could be a problem and that we should further investigate. A single ratio does not give enough information to judge the overall performance of a firm. Ratios being compared should be calculating using financial statements from the same point in time. It doesn't really help us if we're looking at toy manufacturers and comparing one company's July ratios to another company's December. There's going to be drastically different numbers. It is preferable to use audited financial statements. Make sure that they're accurate and honest. The financial data being compared should have been developed in the same way. And one big key here is that results can be distorted by inflation. So there are some limitations of financial ratios that I would like to cover before we dive into the different types of financial ratios. First, it may be difficult to compare your company's financial ratios to the industry if your company is large and operates in many different divisions. So if you have a tremendously large company that manufactures several different products, it may be difficult to find a competitor. Seasonal factors can distort ratios. So again, if we're looking at a retail store, their sales in December are going to be drastically different than their sales in July. And so we need to make sure that we could be comparing, Target to Walmart at the same point in time. Otherwise, we could get distortions due to seasonality. Window dressing techniques can make statements and ratios look better. And different accounting and operating practices can distort comparisons. There are qualitative factors to consider as well. So this is not just a quantitative approach. We need to analyze the company as a whole and assess the risks involved. So we know that there would be greater risk if most or all of your revenue is tied to a single customer. What happens if that customer chooses a different supplier? What happens if that customer goes out of business? What if all of your revenue is tied to a single product? There's no diversification. What if another company comes in and starts making that product at a cheaper price? Look at the risk if you're reliant upon a single supplier. What if you can't get your raw goods? What if a high percentage of your business is generated overseas and all of a sudden tariffs are increased? We need to look at the competitive situation and see how many players there are in the market. What products are in the pipeline? Are we innovative? Are we pushing out new stuff? Do we have a lot of money invested in R&D? And what are the legal and regulatory issues within this industry?